director, former congressman, family man, patriot, Ron Paul, on with us. And, of course, his son, in every major poll out there, is the front runner and hasn't even announced yet, and is the front runner in New Hampshire as well. Been winning the big CPAC polls, Senator Rand Paul, ladies and gentlemen. So it's so exciting to have former Congressman Ron Paul on with us for the next 20 minutes or so to cover the waterfront. Thanks for coming on, sir.
Sure thing. Good to be with you.
Wow, there's so much to hit. First off, ISIS, now saying brace for imminent terror attacks, give up your liberties. What's really behind that?
Well, you know, it's a reflection of a deeply flawed foreign policy. I do think that people should be aware of the fact that the more we do over there, the more likely there will be terrorist attack. But right now we're accommodating the radicals by just going over and stay in their backyard. One time bin Laden said, fine, come over here, fight us on our sand. It's easier to kill you here than it is to come over the United States. So, yeah, we're accommodating them, and so there will be attacks, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow, you know, several American cities are going to be blown up. But long term, that's still going to be a possibility because there's a lot of anger that builds up, and they feel very frustrated. And people say, "Well, you're bashing America, you're blaming America for all." But what about from their viewpoint? How many is it terroristic to have a family wiped out that is at a wedding party because a drone dropped a missile and he missed the target and hit some innocent people? That sounds rather terroristic to me. So there's so much hypocrisy that goes on. But Obama the other day, when he was giving his speech, he said, well, yeah, we misjudged this. Of course, we misjudged the army that we have built up in Iraq. They didn't fight very well. But we've also misjudged al-Qaeda. We thought we had them whipped, and we really did. But there was a small remnant left over, and that morphed into ISIS, and we just didn't pay enough attention to it. So on and on it goes. At the same time, do they ever say, well, what was this place like before we went in? Yeah, we had this terrible monster, Saddam Hussein, who couldn't stand al-Qaeda, and didn't get along with the Iranians, so we forcibly throw him out and make it a haven for al-Qaeda. And, of course, this pretense that we got rid of al-Qaeda is just a pretense. So what do? We set the stage for another war. And the Nobel Peace Prize winning president that we have, you know, says that, you know, the good war is Afghanistan, and it looks to me like he thinks it's not such a bad idea going into Syria.
Well, they've given Henry Kissinger and Al Gore Peace Prizes, so it's really a mark of shame, in my view, now to have one. But I did hear they're talking about giving Genghis Khan a Nobel Laureate Peace Prize posthumously.
I haven't heard that one. That ought to be interesting.
Well, I mean, he did launch a lot of wars, so why not give him one?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm being sarcastic. I know. I'm usually.
Don't start giving them to Hitler and Stalin and a few others, you know.
Why not? That's a good idea. We could nominate Stalin or something. Again, Ron Paul is joining us live here on this Tuesday edition. If you just tuned in, you can check out his amazing multimedia, TV, radio, podcast system, ronpaulchannel.com. Many of our affiliates that carry my show also carry his show around the country. So it's very, very exciting to see really what I think is the hope is the new media displacing the establishment media. The inventor of the internet was in Reuters yesterday over in England. We'll put that story up on screen, saying that the very freedom of the web is threatened. We had William Binney on a few weeks ago, former director of intelligence for the NSA, saying it is a totalitarian takeover. It is targeting the people. I mean, we have a lot of prominent folks, not just you or the former president of the Czech Republic. We have a lot of prominent people that are coming out and saying, look out. What's your view on internet freedom?
Well, it's being diminished. I mean, the larger the government gets, the less freedom that we have. But in the same sense, there's a counterbalance to this because there's a lot of rebellion going on right now. I mean, just think how strong the secessionist movements are, people who want their independence. That's pretty strong, even though there's not tremendous success so far. But the ideas are changing. And one thing I've noticed that in some of these votes, in these the referendums that occur, it shows that young people are more likely to say, you know, let's get out of this big government business. They're the ones that are messing up the economy, and they're the ones who get us into wars. So, yes, they're very much much involved. And, of course, we brainwash the military that we have and the American people saying, well, we have to do this because we have to be over there, because we have to defend our freedoms, we have to defend our Constitution, protect our national security. Well, they can lie about that just so long because it has nothing to do with it. It has more to do with what the subject you bring up. What they're talking about is if they justify the war, people can get frightened into giving up their liberties. They don't even have to come in here and invade us. We create NSA and we create Patriot Acts and these secret courts. So we unfortunately do a lot more harm to our liberties than any outsider ever dreamed of.
Tim Berners-Lee, who's credited more than anyone of being the true inventor of the Internet, not Al Gore, had nothing to do with it, folks, is saying that basically the same thing. Leave it alone, leave it free. All the inventors, all the trailblazers, all the experts agree with you, Congressman. Ron Paul, again, joining us. You've made one of your main initiatives in the last few years trying to defend the web, which is laudable, obviously. But when we have almost all the inventors of it, all the experts agreeing with you, how could the establishment then be still marching towards draconian control of the web?
Well, they think they can do it because they have a lot of guns and they have a lot of authority, but I think there's building, who was it, Google and somebody else is developing a telephone that the government couldn't even
Apple.
get into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the counterbalance, and I have a lot of confidence in technology, even with the abusive state. And technology, can counteract this. Oftentimes we would have laws being proposed in Washington that will have, how to solve the problem of getting phone calls that are unsolicited. So we need more federal government regulations to regulate your phone and who can call you when and have these lists, no-call lists. See, I opposed all that because I always believed, and rightfully so, that we can get technology, into our telephone system. We can load a number, and if we don't want to answer, we don't have to. And spamming protection helps us to some degree. So technology by the government is always going to be used against us, but we have to try to get the smart people on our side to make sure the technology protects our liberties.
Case in point, as you know, Congress has tried to pass a bunch of laws about pop-up ads on the Internet to get their claws into that. Instead, people just download free pop-up blockers that works perfectly in almost every case. So again, innovation is the answer, not more regulation. I saw a study that came out, I'm sure you saw it from a major university about a month ago, that the U.S. is now 33 worldwide for economic freedom, behind every industrialized nation. I mean, this country is not as free as it used to be.
Nope, and it's going the wrong direction. But what about on television? I don't watch these movies and things, but people who download or set their programs, can't they go back and watch the program and click off? They don't have to listen to the ad. So that's another way that they can serve their own benefit. So, but I still want to be the optimist to say that this technology is about time it's being used for a good reason. And my argument is that for not centuries but thousands of years, all technology has been used for the state in enhanced war. Whether it's jet powers or nuclear energy or whatever, it's always been used to build bigger and worse weapons. And I think now we are moving into an age where we are capable as human beings to take technology and use it to do exactly the opposite.
Yes.
I know that it's early on and it's a big transition and it might be a stretch, but why not? Why not even think that it's a possibility that we can use technology for the advancement of peace and prosperity rather than using it to enhance the power of the state? RonPaulChannel.com. Dr. Ron Paul joins us. I want to ask you about Ebola in a moment, but since we were talking about Al-Qaeda and our government giving them weapons and calling them ISIS, ISIL, Congressman Walter Jones, as you know, has introduced a bill to release 28 pages. I've talked to him and others that have seen it. I've talked to Colonel Schaefer and others. I know you've spoken out now. I mean, clearly it's Saudi Arabia in there that our government knew bare minimum was standing down. What is your view of the 28 pages of the 9/11 report that's been made secret, and what should be done about that? Well, we're doing our very best to galvanize the people who believe that we have a right to see that, and even those people that were involved in investigations, we generally think are part of the establishment. They're saying we should see this too, so that is very, very good. And this This should be the whole purpose. Unfortunately, all commissions that I have witnessed generally are there to cover up, the mistakes of government and to protect government agents so they never get blamed for anything or never get punished for anything. So I do everything. I had Walter on the program. We interviewed him on the channel, and we're trying to build up as much pressure. Someday maybe, but, they're going to fight it. But, I don't think it takes a genius to figure this out. They almost, the first thing is I think what government does is almost they encourage, the speculation, about what's going on, and they do this by claiming that that we don't even know what's happening out there, and yet we do. What about right after this thing happened? I remember being stranded in Washington, and I couldn't get out of Washington after 9/11. The airports were a horrendous mess, and then I hear the story. Well, the Saudis got out, the bin Laden family got out, and the FBI never even asked them a question. I mean, if that doesn't make you suspicious of what's going on, nothing will. But we have, yet to learn all the truth of it, and I think that's what our job ought to be, and that is finding out the truth rather than the lies. And of course, my statement has always been that if there is an empire and you tell the truth becomes the treason. So that's why the whistleblowers get into so much trouble. Greenwald and others, they get into big trouble by just trying to tell us the truth.
That's right. Now, continuing a few final questions in the 5 minutes we have left with former Congressman Ron Paul. Ron, looking at the economy, I want to spend a few minutes on that. Then I want to look at Ebola, and then I want to talk about RAND 2016. You're a medical doctor. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know the standard policy was don't bring Ebola patients or smallpox patients into the U.S. Now they're bringing them in by the score. They think they may have someone who got in who has it in Dallas right now. That's CBS News. What is going on here as a medical doctor? What's your take on this?
Well, I think we should have stayed out of it. This is another example of how foreign aid backfires on us. A lot of people dying, serious disease. We're the smartest in the world. We have to go over there. We have a military power that sent 3,000 troops to fight Ebola. And so we send our people over there, and now we know there's an epidemic. But it's interesting, there was a report out that showed that this part of the world has put up with epidemics of diseases like this for a long time, and they had certain rules built into their society that if there's a bad disease going around some small town or area, that you quarantine, and it was almost self-quarantine. Don't come in and you don't leave, and it was self-contained. But we go over and we get involved, and we send people in and out. It just behooves me to think about how we mess this up. Besides, I keep thinking, although I know how serious this is, I know a lot of people are dying, but in perspective, how many people, when I think about the problems the world faces and the problems have been compounded by government about malaria, we have a couple 100 million people get malaria every year. We have 1.2 million people die of malaria every year, and it's been compounded by government intervention and the inability to use sprays to kill the mosquitoes. And it isn't, if they were really, really concerned, wouldn't the concern for the people who die from malaria be at least equal to
Isn't it
a couple thousand dying from the Ebola?
I agree. I mean, look, they estimate it could be 40 million people have died since they banned DDT and won't even allow something to come out that's a lot safer. Key point you just made. Ron Paul, in the few minutes we have left here, the economy. I personally travel around the country some and outside the U.S., and just food prices have more than doubled the last year. Everything is so expensive. I can't imagine what it's like for poor people to survive.
Yeah, but you don't believe the government. The government reports CPI, and that's what really counts. If the CPI is not going up, everybody's okay, and their standard of living is going up, and they're not having a problem. The value of the dollar is being held up. Of course, being cynical, but I think the real conspiracy